Hey everyone! In this video we're going to be doing a Deceive Inc competitive trios agent tier list. It's a lot of words. Basically we're going to be taking every agent in the game and ranking them based on what they can provide to a team in a competitive sweaty trios lobby. Now what is competitive trios, you may ask? Honestly, competitive trios does not exist right now. It's more of a conceptual thing that I think is fun to think about for me, so that's why I'm doing this video and ordering the agents based on this, more than it is like a thing that's in reality. So like sort of what I would imagine a competitive trios is take 12 of the best players in the game, put them into teams, they'll play trios together, any agent, any expertise, all that stuff, no restrictions, do whatever the heck you want to win the absolute sweatiest try-hard matches. And then I think the other thing that would be part of the game, which isn't in the game right now, if you look at competitive like Apex or PUBG right now, people get points for kills and they also get points for placement. So if you don't kill people but you were you finished second because you didn't kill anybody, so you kind of finished first, and you would still get a lot of points compared to a team that maybe killed like 10 people but then like died very early on in the game. So like the sort of hybrid point approach where like you are rewarded both for being aggressive and getting kills, but you're also rewarded for playing the game out. So I don't think placement makes sense in a game like Deceive Inc because like there isn't really any placement, but Deceive Inc has very clear objectives. So I think, and I don't want any specifics, but I think like in an ideal competitive sort of scenario, you would get some points for eliminating players and killing players, and you'd also get some points for completing objectives and advancing the game. So that way players are incentivized to actually, do guard rooms, do vault terminals, unlock the vault, grab the package, instead of just killing all the other agents in the lobby and just making the game a little bit less team deathmatchy. But maybe it would just turn into a team deathmatch fest, and maybe everything I'm about to talk about is a load of garbage. Until we actually see it happen. If it ever does, it probably won't. We won't know. But I think in any case, I think it's a lot more interesting to try and to rate agents based on like their maximum capacity, based on very good players playing them, than trying to rate agents based on the reality of the current trios queues where maybe 50% of the lobby is like level 50 or less because of the influx of new players from like Epic Games, from Amazon Prime, etc. So yeah, I think in that case of anything would go, but I think in this case I can try my best to be a little bit more objective about people's kits where I can, to give a more accurate sort of feeling about each agent. Last thing I want to say is just that, agents in S tier, agents in S and A are going to be providing more than agents in B and C, but like the difference is not that huge. If you're a main and a top player of a lower rated agent, you can probably still dominate lobbies with that agent. This list obviously is about power, but it doesn't mean that the best players can't use their agents well enough that they can't win lobbies and be the deciding factor in games. Absolutely not trying to suggest that. I'm just trying to be objective as I can between the differences in agents where I can. I'm also not fully knowledgeable on absolutely every agent down to the T. Some agents I really just don't enjoy playing, so I haven't really played them very much, and they're also not popular, so I'm not seeing them very much. So those guys are a little bit harder to rate. Having said all that, let's get into it. Let's start with Ace. So Ace, gonna have to put her in S tier. We're gonna be talking mainly about W1 Ace here. Yeah, I think W1 Ace is just extremely versatile. She's an extremely high damage output character. I'd classify her as a duelist. She's got very, very, very strong initiation. She can initiate from basically anywhere in the map. She can initiate from places where other agents simply cannot respond to you. If they try and fight you at a long distance fight, they're gonna be dealing like 50% damage due to drop off, and you're gonna be zoomed in and killing them just as fast as if you guys were 2 meters apart. She's insane. She's good at baiting fights. She can third party safely when other agents simply can't do that, again due to her range. And because of the nature of, her weapon is kind of self-firing, she's good to work around with shields, etc. Makes her very, 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 very strong overall. Her passives are also really solid. I think most people are going to be picking P2, which slows enemies on a charged shot. I think it's got very strong initiation value. Slowing down that first agent hit can usually allow your team to follow up, or yourself to follow up, to get that first kill, and turn the fight into a 3v2. She also has the option of neutralize in P3. I think this is also good. It's just a little bit more situational. There are many agents who are not overly reliant on using their expertise in the middle of a fight, in which neutralize doesn't do that much for you. You're also, if you're initiating from cover, it's not that likely you're gonna know exactly which agent is which. You may know that an NPC is a player, but you might not know that it is specifically the Madame Zhu that you want to neutralize to stop her using her expertise. So in that situation, you may just end up neutralizing like a Hans, and Hans doesn't really care about his expertise, so in that situation, it's not doing a lot for you. So it's a little bit more situational in that sense. Her expertises are also very solid. I think E2 is maybe the weaker of the three in a trios environment, because if you coordinate well with your team, you're going to be bursting down a single target without needing to use E2 really. E1 is going to be very good, just in general, against anyone who's tricky, anyone who manages to make an escape. As long as you get a little bit of damage on them, a punch or a shot, you're going to be able to track them. It's going to be strong for helping close out teams and make sure you actually get like full kills on the entire team to make sure they don't get reses off. E3 is also Big Blind. Big Blind is like crazy high skill cap. There is so much sort of management involved in using Big Blind, but if a player is really good at Big Blind, it can give you a ton of information. It allows you to essentially see in guard rooms for free, depending on which guard room. See what's going on inside. It can give away players. It's good for in fights. If you can round the corner, you're going to have perfect vision as someone, and they don't know that you can see them, so they're going to be jumping around the corner, and you will already lined up your shot. You're going to get some good damage that way. So yeah, I talked about this being mainly W1 ace. I think if I was talking about W3 ace, I'd probably put her in B tier. The issue is that in a top tier game, you would be expecting every single person in the game without fail to be running shield. And W3 ace really struggles against good shield usage. You can't afford to shoot shield base and break it, because now you're out of the game for 1.8 seconds. And you'll see these fights where there will be 3 or 4 or 5 shields deployed, and now you're just like, there's a wall of shields between you and your targets. I just don't think she does enough in that kind of environment. People are really good at playing around the Ace W3. The TTK is not really that much better. Like her one big advantage, I think, is her ability to deal 100 damage with a charged headshot. But to be quite honest, if you're getting an initiation with teammates, W1 does 80 damage on a charged headshot, it's 20 damage less only, and your teammates are going to make up that damage anyway, and you're going to basically insta-kill somebody. So like, yeah, overall I don't really think W3 Ace is that amazing in trios specifically. I think it's a lot better in duos and in solos. But yeah, overall Ace, one of the best duelists in the game, possibly the best sort of pure damage dealer in the game right now, with W1. So that's why she makes it into S tier. Next up, we have Cavalier. I'm going to put Cavalier above Ace, also in S tier. We're starting off strong here. Cav is absolutely crazy, dude. I cannot even, explain how strong E1 is. Her investigation, it completely changes the game. When you have a strong Cavalier in your game, suddenly you are scared to touch absolutely anything, because the Cavalier can trace you, and Cavalier trace is almost guaranteed to be, it's not always a death sentence, you can play around it, but it requires so much management from your team and discipline. It requires you to be very careful on what you do take, what you don't take, where you navigate to. It's very, 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 very strong. It's strong in fights. If you win a fight and there is one person who manages to get out on low health, if they have to run through a door, like on Diamond Spire, for example, if they kind of run into the stairwells, they have to open doors. You can just trace them and chase them and close out the kills. It has a lot of utility. Even if you get scans and there is nothing taken, that gives you some indication of information that agents are not there, so you can probably safely loot up in that area. It's just very good. And that's just investigation, dude. That thing is very, 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 very game-changing. In a game like Deceive Inc, having guaranteed concrete information that that an NPC is an agent without any shadow of a doubt is just, yeah, it's an incredibly strong ability. She also has her W3, the Withens. Very strong weapons, dude. Some of the highest DPS weapons in the game. Absolutely shreds people. So yeah, so your combination of her, she's one of the strongest information gathering agents in the team. Allows you to find teams, allows you to find picks, allows you to start favorable engagements, allows you to even potentially loot safely. And if you don't, even though she has all of that, she also has the ability to gun down people, win fights with her W3. Yeah, her passives, they're all melee kick related. Generally, you're going to run Baleful Blow, which is P3, which is the one that slows people. Again, another strong initiation tool. I think it's less likely to actually be used in a very high level play. If you investigate a player and then walk or run up to them, like, the players are going to know. You're going to get shot before it happens. So you're probably not actually going to use P3 that much. I think a lot of top Cav players just don't really bother with the melee, especially with some of the melees being a little bit suspect and missing when they blatantly should hit. Her passives are sort of less important, and also she doesn't need them. Like, her E1 and her W3 is all she needs to be one of the best agents in the game. So, that's Cavalier. Next up, Chavez. We're going to be on Chavez, also in S tier. We're going to put him below Ace. Chavez is a crazy strong duelist. Everything that Chavez does is just about fights, but he's so good at it. And the reason why you put him on your team is so that when you get into team fights, you want to put the Chavez winning those team fights. We're going to be mainly talking about Duke Chavez, W3. I think it's his strongest weapon by far, especially since W2 caught a very random nerf in the last patch with its reload getting nerfed. And yeah, so W3 is very, very strong. Hand cannon does a lot of damage, allows you to essentially two-shot enemies if you can land headshots. Body shot headshot is 100 damage, double headshot is 120 if they're already out of cover. Any amount of like small amount of chip damage on top of that, very easy for a teammate to supply that, for example, will allow you to finish off the kill on any agent with any chip, not including damage reduction. So he's very good at that. And then combined with that, he also has his P3, which is healing him on every single hit. So like, a Chavez just scales super well into a fight. You get a strong initiation off, or even if you don't, your team gets a fight off, you get maybe a headshot, a body shot, you kill someone, you probably heal for like 20-ish health there or so. I think a headshot heals you for 15 health with P3, and then a body shot heals you for a little bit less. It's a bit strange, it does less healing if you kill the target. But yeah, you might kill one agent, you take his cash, suddenly you might have been at like 50 health, suddenly, you know, or any other agent might have been at like 50 health, after that going up to 75, you know, and that's still pretty good, but 75 health is still not all that much. So Chavez can be at like 95 health, he can basically be back at full health, and then he goes and starts the next fight onto the next agent, duels them, if he kills them, he's also healed for another like 40 health. This guy scales and fights crazy well. His expertise is, since the E2 nerf, people have generally been running E1. E2, I don't know if E2 is still okay. 25% damage reduction for your entire team is really strong in theory. I think it still has some potential applications. E1 is very good against agents just like Ace, when they want to hit you with a big shot. And if you can just micro your E1 and read the play, you can, you know, potentially negate really large amounts of damage. You can use it as a like pseudo escape tool. Use it as a way to just sort of like break cover, get into another piece of cover, maybe get a reload off. It's a good way to sort of extend the fight for Chavez. Keep him in there, keep him healthy. Just adds to his kit. His expertise is not spectacular. It's mainly about his weapon and his passive, which is, you know, mainly what you're going to be worried about. But his E1 does have some utility. If you use it well. If you use it sort of incorrectly, it's very sort of useless. If you do it when people aren't shooting you, if you're trying to run away with it and they're already close to you and they just chase you, then yeah, it's not super great. But there have definitely been times where I've had a Chavez deny a strong shot for me, like using E1 and then turn it around and kill, you know, get into a better position and then turn it back on me, and it suddenly really has to deal with the fight. So yeah, still pretty solid. And even though Duke, you know, it went from being absolutely crazy, ridiculously OP, it got nerfed pretty heavily. I still think, in combination with P3, Chavez is still pretty solid as an agent, one of the best duelists in the game, and that's why he's an S tier. Alright, next up, we have Hans. Gonna play Hans in A tier. So, on the theme of duelists, Hans is another duelist. You know, he is basically very similar to Chavez. He is mainly a weapon, and not much else. So we're going to talk about his W1 Hans for the most part, the hook, because I think W2 and W3 are inferior in a top level player's hands. Yeah, W1 puts out insane damage. Absolutely insane damage. Headshots with ADS are 50 damage. He can shoot insanely quickly. I think his DPS might be higher than Ace and Chavez. He's just a lot more vulnerable in fights. So his passive P2, very good at initiations. That AoE on that thing is huge. You can expose an entire team, you slow the entire team, you're going to follow up with some strong damage. It's really good for your team. One of the things that like can make a team fight go very awry is you might get an initiation onto the enemy, maybe they don't quite die or something, and then their team like sort of positions around you, and then you end up getting sort of surrounded, get caught from different angles. If you're getting shot from 2 different angles, suddenly shield is very useless because you put a shield down from one angle and you just die to the agent shooting you in the other angle. Hands can do a lot to alleviate that, because oftentimes when you just shoot, that AoE is so big, it's so big it reveals every agent in that team, and suddenly you know where everybody is and everybody knows how to play the fight super cleanly. Really helps a lot. He does have expertises. His expertises are kind of mediocre, not gonna lie. E1 is supposed to be like good as a solid initiation tool. It just takes so long to use that it's almost never worth it. It might be worth it if you know for certain there's a Larcin or a Ju that you're going to deny the expertise of. You might want to use it. Otherwise, most of the time it's better to just shoot people. You can shoot them with the body shot to broadload cover initiate, immediately follow up with a W1 headshot that's 75 damage. You know, however, like, you know, half a second later, you can headshot them again if they haven't reacted and don't have a shield. You know, they have to play it super well. You've already killed an agent. If a Hans is hitting in shots, a Hans is absolutely terrifying. So yeah, so I do think he has some sort of defensive frailties. If you initiate onto a Hans, he's big, he's hard to miss, and he doesn't really have any tools to help him. Maybe E2, but honestly I didn't even find E2 as sort of underwhelming, to be quite honest. So yeah, so that's why I would put him sort of more in A tier as opposed to Ace and Chavez. I think Ace and Chavez have either like sort of a little bit stronger defensive capabilities, or in Ace's case, she's just a little bit more versatile in where she can sort of start engagements and take engagements from, and also her ability to counter agents like Ju and, you know, escapees, etc. is actually a little bit stronger than Hans's is. Okay, cool. Next up, Larcin. Gonna be putting Larcin into C tier. I'm not 100% sure on this one. Larcin is one of the best agents in solo play, absolutely guaranteed. Cannot even dispute that. If you want to play a sweaty Larcin in solos, Larcin is disgusting. He can do so much in 1v1 environments. You know, stealing stuff, getting kills, initiating, repositioning with E1, reinitiating, and it's very hard to deal with a really good Larcin player, but I just don't think in trios he brings that much. E2 is was like his cornerstone ability in team games, when it was before it got nerfed, and after the nerfs, after it got like, it's like a 70-second cooldown, and honestly the AoE is just not that big right now anymore. It's a bit of a struggle. Like, he kind of fell off the face of the earth for good players. I don't know the last time I remember seeing a good player playing an E2 Larcin. People just don't seem to do it anymore. His weapons are also, like, you know, not that great. He doesn't really have amazing weapons. I think his ability to steal things is a lot more muted in trios. It's just not that important. His ability to hold package is also just not that great in trios, because, like, okay, you can do some fancy cool stuff on Larcin, but then your team can't really follow you, so it's still not that amazing. There might be some things there where you can just sort of bait people away, your teammates can see them running around and maybe get the initiation that way. And yeah, his ability to teamfight is just not that impressive. You know, his main thing is like getting some good damage in, poofing, repositioning to get more damage in and finish an enemy off, but that takes so much time. That's like 4 or 5 seconds. And in a solo game, again, that doesn't really matter because who cares if it takes 5 seconds, it's just one guy. But in a trios thing, if it takes 5 seconds to kill a guy, your entire team could be dead by that time, and you're not getting a ton of value. So yeah, I'm a little bit like iffy on the placement. Maybe he's actually a little bit better than I'm giving credit for. You know, if you're a solid Larcin main, show me how it's done. I want to see some, you know, go destroy like a million trios games using Larcin, be the linchpin. But otherwise, yeah, I think from what I can see of the agent, and trying to understand how he would fit into like a very high level lobby, I just think he's a little underwhelming. I just don't think he has a lot to offer specifically in a trios game. So I'm gonna put him in C2. Alright, next up, Madame Zhu. Madame Zhu. Madame Zhu for me, I'm putting her at top of S tier. I think she's the best agent right now, hands down. Absolutely insane agent. She has no weaknesses. She has nothing bad about her kit. Her entire kit is absolutely crazy. You know, top of S tier, edges out Cavalier for me. I think other people may argue that Cavalier is better than Zhu. I think it's, you know, it's a close toss-up, but for me, I think Zhu pips it just because she is so versatile. Let's talk about it, right? First, let's talk about the obvious thing here. P3, Mamba's Hunch. Absolutely insane ability. You're gonna get so much value out of this thing. So much freaking value. Every time thing is done, you're going to be able to see where everybody is in the map. You're going to know which terminal is done. You're going to be able to figure out your next move based on this information. And if, you know, if there's like 3 teams running Madam P3 and you're the only team who's not, like, every time a terminal's getting done, you're going to be terrified. What are you going to do? You don't know what to do. You don't know if people are near you. You just know that, like, okay, all these Madams now have our location. Are they going to be gunning for us? Are they going to be using that time to, you know, figure out which terminals go to next? Are they going to be sort of playing around that stuff or not? Like, it's like there's like a lot going on, and the information that this ability gives you is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. It's very game breaking. When I play with Madam P3, I don't feel like I'm playing Deceive. Genuinely, I genuinely feel like it solves so much of the puzzle space, like the oh, where could the enemies be? Oh, what have they potentially done? Oh, where should I potentially go to find them next? Oh, how shall I start this fight? There's just so many questions that this just like flat out answers with so much certainty that you just, you know, it just gives you so much. And then there's the other situation where it procs and you find a team out of nowhere. You know, you guys end up being very close to each other and it just allows you to start like the perfect fight. You get to position exactly what you want, you get to start a fight, you know, and it's very, very hard to lose that fight. Secondly, let's talk about her weapons. Let's talk about Longshan W2, because that is going to be the weapon of choice for every top tier player who's playing her. It is nuts. Absolutely nuts. One of the strongest weapons in the game. This thing deletes people if you can hit heads. It's a burst weapon, 3 round shot. If you hit every headshot, it's 45 damage. You can 3-tap people through any chips if you can land headshots well. Obviously, you're not going to hit 100% of headshots, but like for example, you might, if you like initiate on Zhu, you can burst to break their cover, that's 30 damage, and then triple headshot them, almost guaranteed, because no one can react in time. That's 75 damage. And now, you know, you've done essentially an ace W3 initiation, but, you know, you still have 12 bullets on your gun, and you can just continue firing. So, like, it's basically ace W3 initiation, but stronger. It also scales really well to a fight, and it just allows you to win a lot of duels that, honestly, you shouldn't really be winning as a character with this much information gain. It doesn't, you know, a character that has this strong of a passive, also has this strong of a weapon, and also has crazy strong expertise, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah, absolutely nuts. This character just, again, no weaknesses. Her weapon is super strong in the right hands. And yeah, so let's talk about expertise as well. I think they're all solid. I think E2 is probably the best. E2 is probably the most versatile in a fight. You know, one of the big things that like is important in a trios game is you don't want to get cleanly wiped. Like, trios games are very dynamic, and Zhu always giving you that really solid escape option. Like, so solid that like you're just gone, and there are very few agents that can even counteract it in the first place. So you can like E2 an NPC just walking away, walk into a fight, start the fight. Oh no, the fight's going bad. Use my E2, I'm literally 100 meters away. Or, a Diamond Spy, you might go from like floor A to floor D. And like, who the heck is gonna chase you, dude? Even if they have traces and stuff on you, you have enough time that you're gonna be able to get out of there and get away safely. Yeah, so she's really good for escaping, longevity to the team. E1 is a little bit more direct in combat. You can use it to sort of reposition. I think it's a little bit weaker. Again, when you're talking about a trios game, E1 maybe takes like 2 or 3 seconds to complete if you're choosing a faraway target. And if you do that, then that's 2 or 3 seconds where you're literally not in the fight. Which either usually means you've already won the fight or you've already lost the fight. There's very few times where the fight is going to be in the balance, and that is going to make the difference. But even then, I still don't think it's a particularly bad expertise. Like, combining jump pad and E1 is a very, very strong escape tool again, because people just completely lose track of where you're going to be going. Yeah, no weaknesses. Complete agent, great escaping, great at dealing damage. P3 is absolutely busted for as an information tool. Yeah, when they talk about one of her voice lines is information is queen, well, we have the 2 queens right here of information gathering. Cavalier and Madame Zhu. So that's why she is top of S tier for me. Okay, next up, Octo. Gotta be putting Octo into B tier. I think Octo is incredibly strong. His W3, Calamari, what strangest name for a weapon I've ever heard, but yeah, his Calamari and his E3 are both insanely good together. So why is he in B tier when he has this crazy combination, which, to be honest, if he was a traditional agent, that combo would put him straight into S tier, because he has these clear weaknesses with his intel management. Playing a top tier trios game with Octo is honestly pretty challenging. There's a lot of extra management you need to do for your intel. You do not want to get caught out in a fight when your Octo is low on intel, because if he doesn't have intel, he doesn't do basically anything. Like, his damage without intel is so unbelievably low. He's a big struggle. It's a really big struggle. He's also weak to spawn rushing. Like, Octo is, you need to take intel at the start of the game to be relevant, and it's hard to do that because you might want to defend against a spawn rush by NPC walking around, leaving known spawn areas to get to different places, and you still got to then find another place after leaving, so that might take 30 seconds to stay safe from a spawn rush. Then you've actually got to find a place to gather intel. You don't know how many Cavaliers are going to be looking around, potentially getting scans on you because you have to take intel somewhere. He's just quite awkward. And if you can't find keycards early, then suddenly a lot of the intel investment in your team is going into opening doors, potentially, blue doors, purple doors, which is going to be sapping a lot of resources away, and your Octo still needs to have enough intel, maybe like 8 to 10 intel to fight effectively in a team fight. So he's challenging, and his weaknesses are very apparent sometimes. Like, an Octo without intel is just like, you are the worst agent in the game, by far. But, having said all that, if you're an Octo with intel, he's crazy strong. He's crazy strong. His E3 is an okay spy check, but, it drains resources from the enemy. That's pretty cool. Honestly, a pretty underrated part of it is just having, your ability to drain a bunch of intel from your opponents. And then also neutralizing everybody. It's great for shutting down Zhu's, it's great for shutting down Larcin's, other people, or Chavez's. If he wants to try and use the E1, you can just shut them down. Even people like Red trying to get off Cham in a team fight, well, Octo's a very good counter to that, because she is the only way she's going to Cham you is if she's in the open. If she's in the open, you can see her and she can't Cham. Yeah, very, very, very strong E3. And a W3 again, if you have the chops, you can hit the headshots. Chunks people. It's very good. It's chunky, deals a lot of damage. It's very similar to the other top duelist agents, Chavez Hands, where his ability to just, laser people in the heads and just delete them is very, very, very high. So yeah, I kind of think I can put Octo above B tier just because he has these very inherent weaknesses that are very challenging to work around. But I do think Octo, when he's in the right positions, has the intel available, he's a very, very scary agent to face. Next up, we have Red. Gonna be putting Red into A tier. Yeah, I think Red is overall a very, very solid hero, agent even. She's a very solid agent. She does a lot for her team. And she has some potentially game-breaking abilities and ways she can change the game that other agents basically can't. Yeah, so let's get into it. So yeah, I think like she has two very solid weapons. I mean, honestly, all three of her weapons are decent. I think W1 and W3 are solid the highlights. I think W3 probably edges it out, maybe? But W3 is also riskier because if you get caught at medium range, W3 is really not doing much for you. W1 is pretty solid. It's definitely not at the level of Cavalier and Ju and other strong, sort of more automatic weapons, but still in a good spot. Still pumps out the DPS pretty reasonably well. So yes, and then W3, if you can get in range, it's still extremely potent. You have to be pretty good at aiming. You can't afford to miss too many of the pellets anymore, but if you can land good meat shots repeatedly, W3 also packs a decent punch. But honestly, her weapons are not really her highlight here. Like, her highlight by far is her E1, it's her charm. And yeah, charm in a trios game has the potential to insta-win you fights. Like, charm, just to be clear, anyone doesn't know what charm does. Charm, when you apply it, it slows and neutralizes and also basically stuns people for 1 second-ish, where they can't shoot. It interrupts channels, interrupts people like Yumi charging. If you have like Octo W2 or Ju W3 and it's the middle of going ham, you charm them, well, they can't fire anymore, so they lose their charge up time and they have to recharge up, etc. Yeah, so it has this like 1 second delay, and then if you shoot, if you break your own cover, and also gives you your cover back, sorry, and if you break your own cover, then you're now vulnerable, taking extra damage, and then also re-neutralized. So if you charm a team, they're basically, for the most part, forced to fight. They have to fight because they're slow to neutralize, so they can't leave. And your team is going to be able to collapse on them and engage upon them pretty successfully. Not that I would generally recommend initiating with charm. I don't think that's a great idea. Where charm is super strong is it's AoE, and you could potentially hit a full other team with it. So what can happen is you can start a fight, and then you can charm 3 players. And now, not only can 3 players not do anything for 1 second, which is insane, by the way, you basically could get 1 full second of free DPS, you can then focus down a single target very easily, because the other players can't do anything, and they can't leave because they're slow to neutralize, and then the others are going to try and fight you, and they're going to break their covers, and now they're both going to be vulnerable. So you basically like, if you hit charm on an entire team, you're put in such a strong position overall. It's crazy. The reason why I'm not putting her in S tier is I think a top tier team should be able to position correctly in a way where they're not getting triple charmed, like, consistently. I think if a charm is hitting 3 people, you've made a major error in the way you approach the fight. Or they got a really, really strong initiation on you, in which case, you know, you were maybe going to die anyway, even without the red charm. But the red charm will definitely be the nail in the coffin. Yeah, it's pretty freaking strong. But yeah, if it's only hitting 1 person, for example, I think it's pretty manageable. If you're like in a 1v1 duel in this specific team fight and you charm them, it's not like it used to be basically still a game winner, but it's not like that anymore. I don't think it's that strong anymore if you only hit a single person. So yeah, people can actually, if they're already ahead in damage in that 1v1, they can just break the charm, get heartbreak, and just kill you anyway. It just doesn't really matter. She also has 2 pretty strong passives though. Her P1, Makeover, gives you damage resistance every time you regain your cover, which is also a thing that's similar to Chavez, can really scale into a fight. If you can kill a guy, you know, maybe charm, get your cover back, damage resistance, then kill the guy, pick up his cash, get damage resistance, kill a second guy, pick up the cash, your teammate dies, pick up the cash, you might have like 4 or 5 seconds of 25% damage reduction, which can be crazy. Like, combine that with all the cash healing, and allows Rez to do potentially some crazy stuff, but she just kind of doesn't die. Very strong teamfight ability. Also, like, I do think the changing disguise every time you regain cover is also like a pretty nifty part of it. It's an underrated part of it. Good players are great at tracking every little piece of information, like, for example, what disguises people had. And if it, you know, it can feel pretty spooky to have to feel like you need to change disguise in like maybe a somewhat open area because you're being like kind of chased or tracked, but you don't also do you change disguise? Because maybe they'll see you change disguise, in which case they're gonna 100% know who you are. Or do you risk it? Do you leave the breadcrumb behind, which maybe they can use that information to again continue to search for you? Like, there's a whole lot of like questions to be asked, and Red doesn't have this issue because like when she's regaining cover from like breaking, regaining, etc., she's just different every time. So like you're getting this free disguise change, which is honestly pretty nice, pretty neat. The other strong passive she has is Naughty List P3, which allows her to trace any agent who is being scolded within 60 meters. It has like some limited use for people trying to break into guard rooms and staff rooms, etc. It has a ton of use in team fighting and finding third parties, because guards oftentimes join team fights, and if a guard is in a team fight, he is scolding somebody. Even if he's not visually scolding you, if he is in a team fight and he is building your heat, Red can see it. So that oftentimes allow Red to find third parties and find favorable engagements that way, allowing her to like her and her team to mop up fights that the otherwise might not even know anything about, depending on the map. Yeah, so I think Nautilus is also pretty solid now. It's a good ability. So yeah, she has some different viable passive picks. Moving on to Sasori. I'm gonna put Sasori into B tier. Sasori again, he's a duelist. His main thing, he's not a complete duelist. He does have some utility outside of dueling, but majority of his kit is focused around dueling and fighting. And I feel like he just has weaknesses that other agents just don't have. His main thing obviously is about getting him close, getting to melee range, and the sword slashes down. His W1, Ame and Kage, I don't know. Ame and Kage, I would guess. Please don't butcher me in the comments of my mispronunciation. Yeah, they're good. And if you're really skilled, you can land obviously a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. But that also requires you to be in melee range, and honestly, it's pretty hard to get into and stay in melee range against certain agents, against good players. You know, a lot of other agents are just not tied to this very small thing. So if you get engaged upon as a Sasori, you kind of just don't have anything to survive, dude. Like, and you have no way to retaliate because okay, you can throw some you can throw W1 melee like left clicks, but like, you're not out damaging basically anybody with that if they're good at the game. So yeah, I feels like he's a little bit high risk, high reward. And then the other thing as well is like his utility outside of that is basically one of his expertise is he can throw a poison vial and makes a big poison bubble, and that ability is honestly not bad. It lasts a long time. It's a good area of denial ability. You can sometimes like split teams that way, throw it in a choke area, one person one side, the others on the other side. But it also is a way to self-reveal, like, sometimes you can see a Sasori throwing it through cover, and hey, that's a Sasori, I know who that is. You can, get the kill, you can get an engage in him that way. It's also just very finicky. Very finicky. It's very easy to use the ability. It can hit things you don't expect it to. It can get stuck. Oftentimes I see people throw it and it gets stuck on something like basically right next to them, and they just basically like throw it on themselves. So yeah, it's like it's not super easy to use, and honestly I don't think the benefit is that. It's good for delaying, but I don't really think it's like a game-changing way, a game-changing spy checking ability like Zhu and Cavalier have. So yeah, I think overall, I am a little bit unsure about Sasori's overall placement because no one really plays Sasori very much anymore in trios, and I really don't enjoy playing him, so I don't play him either. So yeah, a little bit. This is a little bit more theoretical from what I can kind of garner and see based on Sasori play. I do think he's a little bit similar to Larcin, where he's better in solos. It's a lot easier to control the engagement in solos, and he's solid, a lot more solid in solos. But I think in trios, I don't really think he has any standout advantages over like any other agent really. All right, next up we have Squire. Gonna be putting Squire into A tier. I think Squire is just a very solid agent, dude. I think he has a lot going for him. He has some good weapons. He has some good expertises. He has some good passives. Like, nothing overwhelming, W2 Trident used to be broken, but it has been continually nerfed for the past like 3 or 4 patches in a row or something. Like, it's been continually just changed and knocked down again and knocked down again, to the point where it's pretty balanced now, maybe even slightly underpowered to be quite honest compared to some of the other agents in these upper tiers. Yeah, he also has W1 Lance. W1 is also pretty good. If you can land headshots, if you can continue landing damage, it's just a very, very solid damage option. But yeah, I do think the reason why I'm going to put him in A tier, I think, is around his expertise is, and maybe surprising to some people, is Danger Sense. I think Danger Sense is extremely good. I've been playing a lot of Danger Sense Squire over the past, like, Season 4, end of Season 3. I've played a lot of, against a lot of strong trios teams with Danger Sense, and it's, honestly, it's really massive. Like, it just gives a lot of information. Either it's blue, and maybe it stays blue for a long time, which just gives you a lot of authority to be very effective in your macro play, move around quickly, loot quickly, get into places, do the guard room, get it done, etc. And when it's red, obviously, you now know agents are about, and like you can solve it's not very good at being specific. It's not really going to tell you who is an enemy agent, but like if it stays red for the whole time, you know people in the area, you know you need to be a lot more NPC-like, and also you can be just a lot more attentive. And honestly, like with how good some top-level players are, or just finding other people who are agents just based on tiny movements. Squire putting you in that position where you know to spend extra time looking for those movements is pretty huge. He also has E2, which honestly is pretty solid as well. Like, it's a really, really long duration amped up. It allows you to chase down targets in fights who would otherwise escape. It allows you to make some nifty escapes of your own. You know, it increases your reload speed, which is pretty nice for W2 and W3 if you choose to use W3. Overall, just like pretty solid, you know. Makes Squire is already pretty small with pretty small hitbox. With amped up and with some good movement, he can honestly be pretty tricky to land hits on, which can also help if you need to reposition in a fight. So E2 is also like fairly viable. If you're running E2, you're gonna run probably P3 and turn Squire into more of a pure duelist. I just don't think he has the most amazing weapons on the duelist side. I still think they're good. I just don't think they're quite on the level of like Ace and Chavez with their flexibility. On the passive side, P1, very good. Since they buffed it so that you get a little bit of amps up both on when you deal damage to an enemy and when you take damage, just means it's very versatile. It's good when you start a fight. It's good when you are initiated upon as well. Allows you to maybe create a little bit of distance, you know, get around a corner when other agents might not be able to do that and they would just die. Yeah, P1 very solid, and honestly, it's hard to say, but it's honestly like you can choose it or P3, and depending on the situation, one or other will be better. So his P3 is Aegis cover, and that gives him damage reduction when his cover is broken by an enemy agent, and also gives him headshot protection for like around like a second or something. I don't remember the exact numbers. But that, again, another insanely good anti-initiation passive. It's extremely hard to just outright kill a Squire if you're using headshot-reliant characters like Ace, Chavez, Hands. Because, you know, for that first second or so, you can't headshot him, and then he might have amped up and he's getting away. But even so, it's going to buy him some good time. The only problem with P3 is that if you initiate or your team initiates, it does absolutely nothing for you. It literally, you don't have a passive in that situation, which is where P1 can sometimes sort of edge out. But honestly, they're both very solid. Again, this is another character where he has a very solid kit. He has some good, interesting, viable, different options. He's not sort of shoehorned into a single build. And yeah, he has a lot going for him. I just don't think any particular aspect of Squire stands out as like broken, overpowered. His W2 used to be absolutely broken, and if that was still in the same spot, he'd absolutely be contending in S tier. But I think as he is, he's just a very solid agent. So yeah, A tier it is. Okay, next up we have Vigil. If I can put her in the right place. I'm gonna put her on the top of B tier. Vigil's a bit of an interesting case. I think she has a lot of things going on. I just don't know how good many of those things are. let's talk about weapons first. She has W1. I think her solid better weapons are W1 or W3, and maybe W1 even after the nerf is still sort of her best weapon. Just like pretty solid DPS. You know, pretty fast firing machine gun allows us to just output a decent amount of damage. W3 is basically Duke Light. It's just like essentially just a slightly weaker version of the Duke, and you get an extra ammo. In your clip, 5 instead of 4 to sort of make up for that a little bit, but honestly, if you can land the headshots, W3 is still very potent. So yeah, still a solid option. So yeah, I think overall her weapons are like pretty good. They're not absolutely top tier, but they're solid. I think my issue is her expertises and her passives are just they're a bit weird. So I think her best expertise by far is her E1, her smoke grenades. The problem with smoke grenades is the situations where smoke grenades are huge for your team are not that many. And the main reason for that is that they take like a few seconds, like 2 or 3 seconds. It maybe takes you 2 or 3 seconds to even fire them all, and then it takes, you know, and then it's like another 2 or 3 seconds before the smoke is really fully enveloped and stuff, so you can't actually really see anything from the opposing side. Which means that, you know, maybe it takes 4 to 5 seconds overall to actually like have the smoke screens fully in effect. And I've spoken about before, when something takes 4 or 5 seconds in a high-skilled trio game, your team might just be dead. They might just be dead. And in which case, it doesn't matter if they can't see you anymore, because like you've lost the team fight and all you're going to be doing with those smoke grenades are running away. On the flip side, if you're getting a strong initiation, like, okay, that's cool and everything, but then like if you're going to spend the time to use smoke grenades, you're not DPSing at all. So like, okay, cool, you can do 5 damage with your smoke grenade if it hits, but like you could also be shooting people in the head for 60 damage with W3. So I think in both those situations, smoke grenades can be kind of mediocre. There are definitely situations and times where fights get dragged out. People don't die early, you know, a lot of shields go down, the fights can kind of get stalled. And I think in those situations, smoke grenades become very strong. And if the enemies don't have a way to trace you through the smoke grenades, they basically have to leave or die, because you can't fight through a smoke grenade. When everyone on one trio team can see everyone else who's traced, like, and they can't see you, you're gonna win those fights. So yeah, so I don't think the ability is bad or anything. I just think as a current implementation, it's just a little situational. And some fights just end too quickly for it to be really viable as an expertise. I think E3 is kind of cool, but honestly I think it's kind of limited in the scope of what it can do. It's basically just like, it's a slightly more flexible but also worse bounce pad. You can't reach a lot of places with it vertically, and horizontally is cool, but like I don't know. I could just be running Squire with E2 and it does a lot more for you than Vigil E3 does. And then there's her passives. I don't know, I feel like P1 is like potentially pretty good. It's also very overwhelming in terms of what it gives you. I find that like P1 is just like this huge dump of information overload. And it can be good in the fight, because if you can stick to someone and they're getting repeatedly traced. But like if you're using it as a spy checking thing, again, it can give you away because it's a thing that people can hear and see. The mine is sort of whatever. It kind of sucks, honestly. And then P3 is kind of interesting. There could be situations where you could like trap half a team in a guard room and then just like kill, you know, trap 2 people in a guard room, or trap 1 person in a guard room when you're all in it and just kill them. And none of their team can do anything. Honestly, kind of a pretty interesting way aspect, and it has some usages for like running away as well. If people have the sort of mental acuity to remember to use it in those high stress situations. So yeah, I think P3 is not that bad, but it's also like a pretty situational ability. You're not always going to get vibe from it. There are going to be plenty of times where it just doesn't do anything for the entire game. So yeah, also kind of a weird thing. So yeah, I think overall, like her passives are sort of meh. Her expertises are sort of meh. and her weapons are pretty good. So, but like, she's not really a standout agent, in my opinion. She doesn't really have an amazing role within like a team right now. But yeah, I think overall with all like all that stuff considered, like some good situational stuff and overall like pretty good weapons. Put her in B tier. All right, last agent, Yumi. Gonna put Yumi into C tier. Yumi. Unfortunately, with the last patch, I think Yumi was just over nerfed. I don't think W3 needed to be hit that hard. I think a lot of W3, a lot of people like have had negative experience with it. Some sweaty Yumi main stomping them or whatever with W3, and then being like, "Whoa, this agent is so stupid. Nerf her into the ground. I hate her." Kind of thing. But yeah, I think overall with just like the Yumi changes and her nerfs to W3, she's just kind of underwhelming, dude. I think the real strength of Yumi in a trios team is she is an anti-initiation agent. Like, she shines in getting shot first, and then finding cover using shield, etc., dropping heal bubble, and negating the initial initiation. Yeah, before the W3 nerf, I think Yumi was like an S tier agent, no doubt. Like, very strong weapons, heal bubble is insane, passive reduction, cooldown reduction on gadgets is also very strong, can't deny that. But after the nerf, yeah, her weapon 3 is just like so unreliable. You have to work so hard, and it's also harder to use. And if you don't land headshots and with a charged shot, you're basically like useless, and it takes ages to do that. And when you're charging up, you're slowed, you can't really do anything. You're very obvious when you're about to peek, etc. Like, you know, she struggles a lot under pressure now. Because what it used to be before is that like it would be the Yumi would drop shield or whatever, get behind cover and heal bubble, and it's pretty hard to re-engage the Yumi because the Yumi can then charge a slingshot and then you can get hit in the face for 95 damage and then you're dead. And she could still potentially do that, but there's so much more time now because it takes longer to charge. The follow-up is going to be a lot weaker because, you know, it takes so much longer to charge her slingshot. Like, her ability to scale into the fight is just a lot worse than it used to be. And I don't think the strength of heal bubble really makes up for that right now. Again, this is one of my more like sort of, I'm not really sure on the placement things because all 3 people who were good at Yumi, I think there was 2, basically the 2 Yumi mains who were remaining both have stopped playing her. So like there isn't really a lot of people maining Yumi anymore. So yeah, it's a bit of a struggle to fully identify her. Maybe she is still better than what I think. Maybe she can hold her own in a team fight and it's enough with heal bubble. One sort of interesting thing here is I think Yumi is actually one of the best ace counters in the game. Ace, you know, heavy hitter, slow hitter, likes to initiate from range. Yumi is so good at like ace initiates from range. Yumi is able to break line of sight. She fully negates that initiation with heal bubble and resets the fight. And then Ace goes home sad. Like, and as someone who mained Ace, and used to play a lot against Skiffin's Yumi, I can tell you that it's pretty rough to deal with. Not pretty much any of our agent, like, even if you can't follow up with a kill, like, getting that damage in early, puts them on the run, like, you know, they can't really now take a fight very easily, and then Yumi just basically does not care, and it's pretty difficult to deal with. So yeah, so Ace and Yumi are sort of intrinsically linked, where if Yumi is strong, then Ace is going to be a little bit weaker, and if Yumi is weak, then Ace is going to be a little bit stronger. Yumi is sort of the agent that keeps Ace in check, so to speak. So yeah, there's the list. Yeah, I think it's pretty balanced. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think they're the bottom tier agents. Like, there are some weaker agents, but like I don't think the agents themselves are bad. I just think in this specific, you know, circumstances in a competitive trios game, they just offer a little bit less than the other agents. They're a little bit more situational. Maybe they have some weaknesses to their kits. You know, maybe they're good specifically in solo fights, which obviously happen a lot less, etc. You know, but overall, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think my list is garbage, or maybe you think you agree. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.